So, well, there we go. It's been a while since we've done this,
Mm.
together. I got a question for you, Nicholas. Now, I was at your house a few weekends ago. Very lovely place that you and your fiance have. I'm wondering, I was a little disturbed. Do you still have your action figures set up in sexually explicit positions?
This friggin' bastard. You are unbelievable. I still can't believe you did that to Darth Maul.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, Geeks Worldwide Radio, the Geeks in the Joystick Universe, proudly presents to you the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's the Fry Guy, Nick Friar. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. And together, we are the penultimate comic book podcast of the world. Nicholas, my guy, how's it going?
It is going great, Joe. And yeah, I'll tell you what.
Did I say penultimate?
Yeah, you said
I
penultimate.
meant to say preeminent, right? Is that the
Preeminent.
right word?
Yeah, I wasn't
I'm all
sure
over
what
the
you were
place
going
today.
for there. Penultimate sounds cool, but that's
It
the
is, but this is not our second to last episode.
That is true. That would be strange. But yes, we always remind you guys to follow us on our audio channels whenever we start this show off. It's been a little bit. Obviously, we did have Ryan Stegman on last week. That's a big reason why we remind you guys to follow us on our audio channels, because the only place that you're going to find all of our Friar side chats. Last week, we were talking to Ryan Stegman about the Schlub and, of course, Vanish. Got a little insight into the future of that title, which obviously was a huge hit at Image Comics. If you're listening to us on live stream now, or actually if you're listening to us in audio form later on in the week, the FOC is July 31st. So that is this upcoming Monday as the crow flies. So make sure you go and get in on the FOC for the Schlub. But we always mention the audio channels. That's Apple, Stitcher, well, for only so much longer, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide, SoundCloud, Amazon. That's important, but you also want to follow us on our social medias. Of course, we're now on Blue Sky, like everybody else. We're also on Threads. Same handle everywhere except for on Blue Sky. I believe we're TLDR Comic Book Club in full over there, whereas everywhere else we're TLDR_pod. And the reason, especially this past week, why you would want to be following us there is because Joe got a little heads up while we were at my bachelor party from a listener that apparently the TLDR Comic Book Club is prominently featured on AWA's Year Zero, Volume Zero. We are quoted right on the cover, the front cover, right under Volume Zero. Joe, I still cannot believe that this happened.
Yeah, listener John, and I apologize if I butcher your last name, but you're in good company because I butcher all of our guests' names. But John Tollison, and he brought it to my attention. I gotta tell you, Nicholas, I haven't drank like that in some time. And I'm laying down, I'm watching some Triple D, little diners, drive-ins, and dives, and I come across the message there, and it was like, holy shit. Holy shit. I couldn't believe it. I was fucking stunned because it's, we have a really good relationship with AWA, and we didn't hear boo, right? We didn't hear boo. And so to see that was such a great surprise. And then, I went on Amazon immediately to try and get a copy of it. Can't. Local comic book shops, we've tried. Can't. So I reached out to our friends at AWA, and hopefully they said, I think once things settle down from San Diego Comic-Con, they're going to try and send us some copies of that. So that might be the crowning achievement of my career. And I'm a fucking doctor. But
it's wild.
It's wild. It's excellent. I mean, we're honored. We feel blessed. We're all this shit. It's really fucking awesome.
Yeah, not something that I was ever remotely on either of our radars when we started doing the show. There's a lot of things that wasn't on our radar when we started doing this show. So it's pretty cool it's very cool to see that. I mean, again, we've had like a week and a half to process that, and Joe and I are still buzzing after it all. So very, we both, Joe read the series as it was ongoing. I caught up after the fact when we had Daniel Krause on the show. So neither of us, we didn't pick up the collected edition, but it's like, God, like, at least, one of the ones where we absolutely should have done that, where it's like we didn't get rewarded for trade waiting, or not trade waiting, excuse me. But anyways, that was great. That was awesome. But that was only just a small part of the news that came out of the past week since we last convened. We had San Diego Comic-Con this past week. A lot of Eisner winners, of course. There's a few friends of the show. There's a few titles and creators that we talk about quite a bit. Just to rattle a few off, Joe, I'm curious which one you're most excited about. For Friends of TLDR, Best New Series, Public Domain by Chip Zdarsky, who, of course, we've had on the show specifically to talk about that, along with Daredevil and Batman. Best Digital Comic, that is by Scott Snyder and Tula Lote. We've had Scott on a few times. It's been a little bit.
And talked about that book 2 weeks ago.
We did. That's right. And I actually did catch up on that. We'll talk about that more later. And then by series and creators that we've discussed frequently on TLDR, we have Best Continuing Series. That is Nightwing. We have Best Publication for Teens. That's ages 13 to 17. Do a Powerbomb. Best Writer, James Tynion IV. Best Cover Artist, Bruno Redondo, who, of course, we talk about primarily for Nightwing. Best Coloring, Jordi Belair, who, I mean, I think anybody who talks about comics talks about Jordi Belair a ton. And then, of course, Best Lettering, Usagi Yojimbo's Stan Sakai, Joe's guy. Which one are you most excited about?
Well, I love that Chip won for Public Domain. I thought that was absolutely fantastic because that is such a great book, and it's different from your typical comic because it's sort of a little bit of a satirical inside look at sort of what goes on in the comics world and what happens when comics get picked up to be big franchises, and things like that. It's a great book, and I absolutely love it. And he does everything on that book, right? He does the whole kit and caboodle.
Yep.
And I love that Barnstormers won for Best Digital Comic.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a sec, but as I talked about this book a few weeks ago on the show for our last mainline issue, it's just stunning all around. It's a fantastic book. The one thing I love that Tom Taylor won for Nightwing, I think that is tremendous because I've said it right from the rip. I said if there's anything that comes close to Zdarsky's run on Daredevil, it's Taylor's run on Nightwing.
But I know where you're going with this, and
I was really hoping Rodney would have won for Philadelphia.
Yep.
That would have just been the fucking bee's knees, man.
Yep. Yeah. Nightwing is very much deserving. And of course, big two, if you got a title that's kicking ass, especially one that kind of wasn't in the best of spot we've talked about before. I was reading Nightwing before Taylor came on, and he has been a rock star on it. It's definitely an advantage, in that regard to go and come in and do a great job. If you do a good job there, you're more inclined to get recognition versus maybe an indie title. But happy for Tom Taylor, but we know Philadelphia was very much deserving. We've talked about that a ton, and we'll continue to talk about it a ton because it was an awesome recent arc, especially. Then we got some news coming out of some other news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. Of course, it was the writers' strike is going on. The actors are SAG-AFTRA is on strike as well, so not really represented at San Diego Comic-Con. But there was a lot of news from the comic book side of things, which is great. Like, that's what we care about most. We found out Melissa Flores is going to be writing Spider-Gwen, friend of the show. We'll have to check in with her soon. Greg Capullo is going back to Marvel, which we did know he was going to be doing some stuff over there. Rodney Barnes is writing Luke Cage series, which is Mayor Luke Cage series. I cannot wait to see how that comes out. We found out we're going to get more Spawn's Universe books. We found out Gunslinger, one of them, is going to be set back, I think, in the Civil War time. So I'm very excited to see that one. And then Ram V is going to be a DC exclusive writer. I don't know how long the contract for. It might have been 2 years, but either way.
Yeah. I mean, I love his indie work, but his run on Detective Comics has been great.
That's right. You've been saying that.
And I think what's nice about it too is that he's turned it back into being a monthly, whereas when it was bi-weekly, it was really good. Like Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora kicked things off. I don't know how they Future State. That was tremendous. And then Dan Mora had to leave because he was doing other things. Superman, Batman, Superman, World's Finest is what he left for. But bi-weekly, it was great, and Tamaki was telling a great story there. But then when Ram took over and just sort of, it's got it monthly. It's been a really great story so far, a bit different. So I think that's great news because he's fit in really well. And most of the stuff that he's been doing over the past year has been DC, whether it be Swamp Thing or Detective Comics. So that was kind of big. That was kind of big for him. I think anytime you see a writer like that primarily indies that's starting to get these DC or Marvel exclusives, that's huge for them.
Yeah, it's huge for them from a career standpoint, and then it's usually huge for those companies. Obviously, Tom Taylor is like the big one for DC
Yeah,
right now. He's just doing more and more over there, and it makes total sense. I'm very excited for Melissa Flores. I think this is a huge break for
that's
her.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean her pivoting into writing after doing so much with Power Rangers over the years, not writing Power Rangers, having a huge role over with that brand, and now she's pivoted into writing and she's doing Power Rangers. Obviously, she's got the Dead Lucky, and now Spider Gwen. This is I love the other stuff that she's done, but we can't deny this is a huge break for her.
Yeah, two things real quick. So one, I'm excited to put this on my pull list for Violet. I think this
Oh
is
yeah.
going to be a great book for her.
Mm.
She loves Spider Gwen, and Misty's writing is absolutely fantastic. But we got a shit ton of Radiant Black news.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the big thing I want to talk about, and I don't know about you, Nicholas, but I set my fucking alerts. The Radiant Black card game.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That's going to be fucking awesome.
Yes. I can't say I've played many card games in my life, but I've always collected cards.
But from a collector standpoint, yeah.
Yeah,
The artwork on those things looks fantastic. Dan Moore is going to do some of the art for those,
which is insane. Yeah, I'm so in on this. I cannot wait to pick these up. It's friggin' awesome. So cool. But yeah, I mean, of course we've had Capullo on before as well. Excited to see that. I'm really happy for Rodney too. I'm excited to see what he does with Luke Cage. I think that's going to be some heavy shit. He knows what he's fucking doing. I can't wait. So yeah, it's all around awesome stuff over at San Diego Comic-Con. As much as there's a lot that people maybe would have liked some more movie news and things like that. Just unfortunately, it's the nature of it right now. Hopefully, the writers get what they're looking for because they absolutely deserve it. But
don't let Marvel off the hook there because they bowed out months ago before any of the strike shit happened. Those fuckers.
That's right. Yeah, because they got their own shit now, right? Isn't that the whole thing? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to catching up because we didn't convene for a what's new last week. I have a lot to just at least touch on. I'm not going to dig into any really, but I will say Wild's End. I read the second issue of that. It's a solid series. I'm enjoying it. I'm not ready to call it I know you're out on it. I'm not ready to call it a TLDR worthy book, but it's a different change of pace. So I do intend to stick with it into the third issue. The second one was good. Read the finale of I Hate This Place, issue 10. Awesome. Awesome series. That was up for an Eisner as well. Mm-hmm. Battle Chasers, issue 11. This was a series I was planning on talking about when it came back, but I just couldn't because of all the interviews we were doing at the time. I think I'm going to wait to see how this first arc goes before I talk about it again, because it's not Joe Madureira who's doing the art. He's just writing. And a big appeal for me was the writing, was his artwork. So curious how I feel about it after this first arc. Nocterra, Nemesis, of course, we both read that. Radiant Black, issue 25, the Nathan version. We'll get to that more when you talk about your stuff. Lamentation, issues 2 and 3 from Cullen Bunn. Awesome. Really enjoyed it. Did you finish that?
So here's the deal. I haven't read it yet. If you want dibs.
Okay, don't read it at all. Nope, I'll talk about it on the show. Perfect. Great. Then we got Big Game issue 1, the Mark Millar event, which I know you read. You texted me like, make sure you pick that up.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to put that up. Oh, eyeball emojis.
Yeah.
Fucking terrific.
Great start to that. And then, of course, we mentioned Barnstormers. I read issue 1 from Dark Horse, which is the collected edition of the first two Comixology issues. And Joe did not undersell it at all. It was awesome first issue. The art is insane. And the story is like again, where you talk about how like Scott layers his stories, this is one where I don't know if it's fair to say next level because there's so many other things that are really cool, but like it is crazy how like in the first issue we have layer 1, 2, 3, and then he's adding more in the second issue. It's wait a second, what the hell are you doing? This is just there's so much potential chaos here. I cannot wait to get to the third and fourth issue.
That's my only gripe from what Dark Horse has done, printing, putting out their print versions versus the digital versions, is that they do two issues at the same time.
Yep.
So the end of the first issue, that what the fuck, it's like instead of you like it leaving you on that note, it's just smack dab in the middle of the issue. And then you continue on, and it's great. And the second, so where the first book ends, it's still a really good spot for it to end.
Yeah,
but it loses just a little bit of that bite that you get like when you read it initially, just like single issue by single issue. But I mean, overall, man, I'm glad it won the Eisner. It was worthy of winning the Eisner.
Absolutely.
And like I said, the art's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and it really is. What have you been catching up on?
Ooh, baby, it's a breathful. So yeah, definitely big game issue 1. That was fantastic. Animal Castle 2, issue 3. Fantastic. I finally read Heat Seeker issue 1, which is a gun honey story. Fun fact about this: I read a little. There's a little thing at the end where basically Charles Ardai was like, because his artist for Gun Honey, for some reason, it's going to take a much longer time. So it's like I wanted to put more gun honey stories out there, so I just hooked up with a different artist to tell some other gun honey stories. While Ang or Lee, or whatever his name, I can't remember his name. I believe that's his name. Is able to kind of get the art ready for the next gun honey series. So excellent stuff. TMNT, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years, issue 4. I hate reading this at this point.
It's wild. I can't believe you're doing it.
I just want to fucking finish it. And they announced a new series. Like,
yeah, a couple new ones.
The Last Ronin was great. Okay, I get it. All right, it was a huge success. Kevin Eastman, I know you lost a shit ton of money. Just let something breathe a little bit first, okay? Because The Lost Years is not good. Wolverine. I had several issues of Wolverine to catch up on. I have not read this week's issue, but I am all caught up. It has been fucking fantastic. X-Men 24, great. X-Men Sinister issue 1. We're leading up to this week's Hellfire Gala, which we did get a copy of.
Yes.
So,
yes. No, they are. Marvel does not do this often. They are clearly worried about spoilers.
Yeah. So those are both excellent books. I don't know if you read Sinister 1 yet, but it was tremendous.
I am behind on my X-Men shit. I don't know what's going on with me. I need to get it together with my Marvel.
That's how I was with Wolverine. I don't know why. I was like 4 episodes behind. Anyways, again, Nocterra Nemesis, the one shot, that was great. And then a couple of finales, a couple of books I actually finished up, all 8 Eyes. That was great. That's going to be a TLDR book. That was absolutely tremendous.
Nice.
West of Sundown, issue 10, the finale of that. That's another TLDR worthy book. And Breath of Sounds, I read issues 4 and 5, so that's the end of that series. All 3 horror books. So maybe we'll get some cooking up in October for these. But
nice,
excellent books. But there's 2 in particular I want to talk about. I usually save my books I want to talk about for the what's new section, but these were that good that I had to talk about them. So the first one, John from formerly the Bright Side Chat, which is now Bright Side Home Theater, messaged me during your bachelor weekend and said, "Have you read The Hunger and the Dust yet? Because if you haven't, you should read it. I think you'll really like it." And I said, "When I can see straight, I will." And so when I got home, it was one of the first things I did. Actually, it was written by G. Willow Wilson, and it's a fantasy book.
Oh man,
Nick, it is tremendous. It is awesome. It was both like when I read a fantasy book, there's a couple things you want in it, right? You obviously want good storytelling. You want to know sort of what the journey they're gonna, the characters are gonna be going on. You want a little bit of levity, right? You want some of that fun sort of humor that oftentimes can accompany fantasy stories. The art was gorgeous. The writing was this is a perfect TLDR book, right off the rip.
So dibs.
Oh, 100% dibs.
Yeah. What company?
Yeah. Oh shit!
Oh, it's fine, but
I don't have it on the top of my head. But it's not it's not one of the big 2. Or even the big 3.
I haven't. I've obviously talked about Jewel Wilson on here with Poison Ivy, but I haven't read a ton of her work. I know she did like some good Miss Marvel stuff, like Kamala Khan Miss Marvel not too long ago, like maybe in a few years. But either way, I got to check more of her stuff out because her Poison Ivy was so damn good. And now you're saying this, and I mean, it's clear I got to look into more of her work that I haven't checked out over the years.
So I was going to look that up, but I didn't have enough time. But anyways,
I tried.
Yeah. It's
okay. So The Hunger and the Dust, you got dibs on that. Okay. Cool.
Yep. And then the next one, you kind of alluded to it just a moment ago, was Radiant Black issue 25. So this is the start of the Catalyst War.
Yeah.
And we didn't know this going in, right? Because this was sort of a big thing that was dropped at Comic-Con. But there's 2 covers. Now, I find this equal parts awesome. And if we weren't doing this show, I would also find it equal parts annoying. Because they're doing for this arc, they're doing 2 covers, cover A and cover B. Cover A is going to tell what's going on through Marshall's timeline. And cover B is going to be telling things that happen through Nathan's timeline. And so, where we were leading up to this point was who is going to become the Radiant. And I have said from the get-go, I'm Team Marshall, and you've said from the get-go, you're Team Nathan. And so, but we didn't know how that was going to go. We figured this would just sort of play out as a regular arc, but no, they're going to sort of present these two sort of alternate timelines where one is where Marshall has the Radiant, and one is where Nathan has the Radiant. And then I guess I'm assuming they'll converge at the end, and then there'll be one or neither will be the Radiant, by the end. So the fact that we're doing the show presents a great opportunity for us because I can just read the A covers and you can just read the B covers, and we'll get a great story. And then we can have a fun little maybe Minnesota or something like that, where mini issue where we sort of talk about, how this all played out.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had. So I do have to get B. I didn't realize that. I thought I was A. I wonder if that's at all foreshadowing too. Of course.
Well, so the review copy that we got sent was the B copy. That's the one you read. That's the Nathan. So it'll be interesting to see if we get both review copies spent to us, or I chose the more expensive route, and Marshall's going to cost me a shit ton of money. And if he doesn't get it, I'm gonna be hella pissed. Well, but no,
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, but like for us, this presents a unique and fun thing. If I was a regular reader of this, I'd be like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, I get it. On one hand, you could just make the choice. No, I'm Team Nathan or Team Marshall. I'm just gonna buy this cover. Yeah. But like, what if you get to the comic shop and they don't have that cover? Mm-hmm. Right?
I could see. Well, looking at
I want to know both. Like, I got to now spend $7 for this one book. You know what I mean? Like, but it's brilliant at the same time. So I'm not trying to gripe on or anything like that. No, but it's a great idea, and I love how Kyle is always sort of trying new things. With this series, as we've seen with No One, for example. But then from an artistic standpoint, and just there's something about the Massiverse, I should say, that's just so fun, and it really truly is a different comic book reading experience. So I'm looking forward to reading these two, separately, and then us talking about them and having a real fun discussion about this down the road.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it right now. Kyle tweeted about the structure of the trade structure, because like, oh, maybe this is like where like it makes sense for people to trade. Obviously, again, we don't promote that, but where things are getting with something like this is unique. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, what is going on here? No. It does make sense here, because volume 5 will be Radiant Black 25A, 25B, 26A, 26B, 27A, 27B. Then volume 6 is going to be 28A to 30B, same structure. So So then, if for some people, like, we're not going to do it because we're going to be we're fine, like because we get the review copies and good for the show. But for people who want to have them all, like it's it's an easy way to collect it.
Yeah, so it's fun regardless. That was just was the me thing, but like it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a really creative idea.
Yeah.
And so I love it because we didn't see that coming. It was great. And maybe that's what he was alluding to when we talked to him about it. But there's no way in hell he wasn't gonna give us that info.
Exactly. This is
he wasn't gonna give us that info.
He's like, well, you're not gonna ask me more. It's like, well, what are you going to tell us? Like, this is like, we can't.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is why this is part of why we asked.
And that's coming from the info weasel.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. All right, let's get to what's new. We've spent enough time focused on the past. Let's look at what's coming out this week in the present, Joe. We got a couple of trades coming out this week that people should know about.
Couple trades. I only highlighted a couple that I think our readers will dig. But Daredevil Elektra Volume 2 is coming out this week, and then Radiant Pink Volume 1. Speaking of the Massiverse there. So I will now spend the next 30 minutes just talking about books coming out from fucking Marvel this week. They were light the past several weeks and said, we'll just shoot our wad and dump it all out this week. Jesus Christ. So anyways.
Wow. Yeah. My thought exactly.
Yeah. Here we go. From Marvel, the week of 7.
We're not doing a solicit. You don't have to worry about it. It's this week.
People listening. Newbie. I'm thinking about the newbies.
The 726.
There we go. Thank you, Nicholas.
You're welcome.
The Amazing Spider-Man issue 30, Venom issue 23, Wolverine issue 35, She-Hulk issue 15, Ultimate Invasion issue 2, Avengers issue 3, Ghost Rider issue 16, The Incredible Hulk issue 2, Deadpool issue 9, The Invincible Iron Man issue 8, X-Men Hellfire Gala 2023 issue 1. Hell yeah, let's fucking go.
Yep.
Darth Vader, that's going to be a big one. Some shit's going to come out of this.
For everybody who's been like, oh, when's the new era of X-Men? Sorry, when's the Krakoa stuff ending? Because we've been hearing about this for a while. This is supposed to be the thing that really kicks it off. I know there's been other stuff that's come out, but this is supposed to be the big one. So, again, we did not get review copies of this. We're not getting our review copies till Wednesday, the day stuff comes out. So clearly some big shit's going to go down because Marvel's worried about spoilers getting out there.
Yeah. And I got a feeling it's gonna be big because the last few Hellfire Galas have been huge. So yeah, baby. Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red, issue 4, Hallows Eve, issue 5, Silk, issue 3, Cosmic Ghost Rider, issue 5, Daredevil and Echo, issue 3, What If, Dark Spider-Gwen, issue 1, Predator 5, Cult of Carnage, Misery, issue 3, Storm, issue 3, Ghost Rider, Danny Ketch, issue 3, Avengers Beyond, issue 5, Hellcat, issue 5, Spider-Man, issue 2, I Am, You Are, We Are, Iron Man, issue 5, The Mandalorian, season 2, issue 2, The Excellent, issue 5, and then Spider-Man India, issue 2.
Yes, and then we go to DC, and there's a whole lot there. Most of it, though, is Night Terrors.
So I found out that DC's pretty much just said no mainline titles while this event's going on.
Yep, and there's still a decent chunk here, but it's like they've definitely.
It's not Batman. It's not Detective Comics. It's not Action Comics. It's not.
No. And it's not necessarily the worst. I mean, I know we got frustrated about it. Was it during Future State? I think we got a little annoyed with it, but I kind of get why they would doing this. It kind of makes sense because otherwise people aren't going to pay attention to the event. But we got Night Terrors issue 2, Night Terrors Detective Comics issue 1. Okay, these are all Night Terrors titles. Titans 1, Action Comics 1, Harley Quinn 1, Angel Breaker 1, The Brave and the Bold 1, The Last Days of Lex. Oh, sorry, no, this is something else. Okay, now, jeez, I'm Ron Burgundy. Batman: The Brave and the Bold issue 3, Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor issue 1, Batman Beyond Neo Gothic issue 1, Poison Ivy Uncovered issue 1, which I got to look at this when I go to the comic shop because this seems like something that's just like a collection of art. Well, I wasn't going to go that far, but the missus is a big Poison Ivy fan, so I may need to pick this up to go with that. Is it Lee Bermejo Batman book that we got like a while back? I might need to get that as a little partner. And then we got Batman: The Audio Adventures issue 7 and DC RWBY issue 6.
All right, from Image Comics. This was a big week from Image.
Yep.
So we had World Tree issue 4. Man, I tell you, this book just continues to get more and more fucked up.
Not many times that I have like FOMO from not reading a book. It's like it sucks that Joe called dibs on it. I really, really would like to read it. This one, I'm like kind of dying to read this one.
Yeah, this is a little peek behind the curtain. Eventually, I think we're going to sort of revisit our horror comics list. This is going to be on there. Monstrous issue 46. The Scorched issue 20. Rogue Sun issue 14. Like, come on. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, Rogue Sun 14 was so good. I mean, that was big Massiverse week because we got the Dead Lucky back too.
Thank you for stealing my thunder. Dead Lucky issue 7 dropped as well. Another excellent issue. Indigo Children issue 5. Old Dog issue 6. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. And it looks like we're going to be getting a second arc on that. So I'm very excited. Click Click Boom issue 2. Per Evil. I can't purr like a cat. Per Evil. Oh, that was kind of awkward. Nah, you're freaking me out. This is you Northwestern boys are making more and more sense now. The Savage Strength of Starstorm issue 3. And then Nick, this is a book we have both been looking for. Holy smokes. Newburn issue 9. Take it away.
Hell yeah, man. So the return of Newburn, Chip Zdarsky, Jacob Phillips, Newburn. I'll tell you what, man, I've been itching we've both been itching to get this back, but I did not, of course, did not expect this to go the way it did. We mentioned it before. We've had Chip on to talk about New Bern. I think those were the two books primarily we're promoting. It was New Bern and then Public Domain. And I'll tell you what,
Batman, he's a 3-time guest.
right? I think we talked about Batman in one of those interviews.
Oh
But
yeah,
anyways,
maybe you're right.
he like with New Bern, it's the whole thing is like every time Chip's getting him into a pretzel, and then he like finds the perfect way to get him out of it. It makes so much sense. And New Bern, of course, like playing chess while everybody's playing checkers. But I'll tell you what, man, he is in a like. It seems like this lays out like a foundation for Chip to play a little bit of a longer game with New Bern in this next story. And I'm itching. Like I don't know how this is going to work out for New Bern, because he seems a little bit like feathers have been ruffled in a few different ways. And then there's other machinations that are moving, that seem to be out of his reach, out of his purview. I don't know, but I really like the return to this issue. Again, if you haven't read New Bern, you are really, really missing out. This has been like every issue of this series has been outstanding. And this is the issue 9. This week's issue is no different.
He's in a bit of a pickle. A pickle. But I absolutely loved it. And I loved that it sort of picked up with the last arc finished off. So excellent stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And then I know you had another Image book that you want to talk about. I did just want to touch on the Masterverse stuff, because obviously we talked a lot about Radiant Black. The Dead Lucky, getting that back. So pumped. Great start to this new arc too. Melissa Flores in her bag. And then you look at Rogue Sun as well. We knew at San Diego Comic-Con that it got announced that there's going to be more past Rogue Sons thrown in the mix. We see that right away in issue 14, and I am here for it. Give me all the fucking Rogue Sons that we can get. These characters are insane. Their looks are awesome. Abel is outstanding at designing Rogue Sons. It's like what he was born to do. So him and Ryan Parrott, they're doing an awesome job. And you look over at Melissa Flores on the Dead Lucky with Calamango. It's been awesome stuff.
Yeah. Those are my two favorite, but Radiant Black, but they're can't miss. They really are. You can't beat that.
Definitely.
So the other book I want to talk about, and again, another peek behind the curtain. You might see some Bone Orchard Mythos books on Doc's top 10 horror books.
Can you talk about it on the show so I can rank them too?
Well, yeah, we got time. We got time.
Yeah, we're gonna have like 15 interviews between now and then. They're not gonna be able to do any.
So yes, again, the Bone Orchard Mythos is Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino, and there's just something about these two. Like when it comes to Lemire, there's basically there's two sides to Lemire. There's the stuff that he does where it's a Jeff Lemire production. It's him writing it. It's him drawing it, whether it's Royal City or Essex County, Sweet Tooth, whatever it might be. And those books, May's book, those books have their own tone, their own feel. Those are very heavy, emotional books. But when he is with Andrea, there is something that just flips. And it's maybe it's got a lot to do with Sorrentino's sort of abstract panels and how he constructs things and how that works in with the storytelling. But when Lemire wants to write a horror story, man, he can write a fucking horror story. And the first issue I talked about when it came out a month ago, I mean, again, it does its job. It hooks you in. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of unknown. Like, where is this going to go? Where is this going to go? And you're so intrigued. And then the way the first issue ends, with someone, apparently committing suicide, and then how that affects the entire building, this tenement building that all these different people live in, and just the fucked up nature of just how Sorrentino is able to sort of draw all these panels and stuff. There's a little bit of that Lemire emotion to it that you get from one of the characters who's a 11-year-old. And then just the way it ends. It's like, one of those, it's almost like a Hitchcock thing where it's like, 1 second you look outside and the world's normal, then you look out again and it's a fucking desolate wasteland, right? And it is so good. The suspense, the not knowing where it's going, all of that. This is such a great book so far, only 2 issues in. So I love when those two are paired together, because it's like Lemire's got a split personality when it comes to his storytelling here, and just the way those two work, it's fucking amazing.
I'll tell you what, every time you talk about him, I'm always like, well, I can't believe that Joe's not talked about any of this Bone Orchard Mythos stuff on here at all, because it's like, I'm just sitting here waiting just to get to hear you
Well,
talk about it on the show and
I'll
not talk
get to
about it.
10. I'll get to 10,000 black feathers. For sure.
Okay.
I'll get to all these before Halloween. How about that?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll see if you can actually accomplish that. I don't know if you can. I question it.
Doubt it.
Mhm.
But Nicholas. So you're bitching to me about not having read these books yet, so that you can read them. What did I do? What did your friend, your confidant, your guy do for you out of the kindness out of his own heart?
Yes, I think everybody knows. If you listen to the show one time, you know that Joe has gifted me a Garth Ennis book, because ever since he's done it, it's been talked about every episode on this show.
You know
Because
how
he
someone
loves
went to
to
BC?
what?
They tell you know how someone went to BC?
Yeah,
They tell you every 5 fucking minutes.
yes.
You know how
Yeah,
Doc did something nice? He tells you every 5 fucking minutes.
that's fucking good. That's fucking good. Um, so yes, the
You know how someone went to Northwestern? I'll keep that one off books.
yeah, I think we should hold.
Uh,
So this is Garth Ennis, Jason Burrows, Guillermo Ortega, Dan Brown, the Ribbon Queen from AWA Studios. And this starts off, it's a crime story. You've got Detective Sun, who's found out something's happened to a certain individual, and as she's talking to her captain, he's the first thing. It's actually a really good tone setter. First page. She comes in the captain's office, like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And you can tell she's like going to shut the door, and he's like, "Please don't shut the door." And she's like, What do you mean?" He's like, "Because when you shut the door, I know that means that like there's something that you're going to tell me that I can't talk about, and it's going to be a huge issue and all this stuff." So obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a funny little tone setter. And then we find out like what's going on, and this issue, so much intrigue in the first issue, and this you have a cop who's trying to investigate other cops in the course of things. That's going to get a little bit dodgy. Yep,
he's a knack.
it's good, but it's like what's happened. It's like you have to, and then you learn all the information and everything, and it's like holy shit, it does. It seems like this all adds up. It all makes sense. And then you get to the ending, and it's like, oh, fuck! It's exactly what you expect from Ennis, where it just gets totally insane at the end, and then it's exactly what you're supposed to be doing at the end of the first issue, where it sets the hooks in. This is set up to be a very interesting, twisty, turny crime story, but it's also like I think it's going to be very jarring throughout the entirety of this series, and I am very excited. Of course, if it's Garth Ennis, you have to be reading it. Period.
Well, the artwork's been very jarring, especially some of the cover art. And speaking of cover art, our good friend Sheldon Buchert has a cover for this, for this first issue. And
Yep.
So I mean, just some of the things I've seen, some of the panels, the preview panels we've seen. I haven't read it, of course, but it looks jarring. From Garth Ennis, he's going to push the envelope. I just hope that when the trade comes out, AWA says, "Can we use the oh fuck?" and just put that right on the front cover there, because something tells me that will be the perfect encapsulation of what this book is going to be.
I tend to agree. And that is definitely how I felt like walking away from this thing. I was like, "Geez, dude!" And actually, Ennis and Burroughs have worked together, and I didn't realize that. He did some cross stuff. Oh my
Jesus! Okay,
God, that
so
explains
now
everything.
We know. Yeah,
it explains everything.
Maybe it's a good thing I let you read this one. I don't know if I can handle it.
Oh yeah,
old enough.
No, yeah, no. Anytime you get Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows together, you're in for an insane time.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah,
man. Oh boy.
I'm not getting gifts that year.
Oh, it's bad behavior.
It's bad behavior. Not that year. All right, so we got to wrap up what's new here, because we have some kick-ass books we want to talk about. So I know there's one last thing you want to talk about, so let me rip through a bunch of these real quick here, Nicholas. So from Dark Horse, we have Star Wars Hyperspace Stories issue 6, real light week from Dark Horse this week. From IDW, we have TMNT Usagi Yojimbo Where When issue 5. I am pumped for this. TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures Continued issue 3. And then I love the name of this for some reason, My Little Pony Camp Big Hoof issue 1. From Skybound, we have Firepower issue 25 and Summoner's War Awakening issue 4. From Titan, we have a video game comic book title coming out, Dead by Daylight issue 2, as well as Blade Runner 2039 issue 5. From Dynamite, we have Disney Villains Scar issue 4, 007 for King and Country issue 4, Elvira in Monsterland issue 3. Again, sounds like your bachelor party. Pathfinder Wake the Dead issue 2 and Victory issue 2. From Millar World, Nightclub issue 6. I am looking forward to this book. This series has been excellent. I can't wait to talk about it on the show. And then we've seen this a bunch. Source Point Press puts out a ton. I don't know how much of this will actually come out this week, but we have Nightwalkers issue 5, Murder by Mail issue 1, The Curse of Cleaver County issue 3, Deep Dark issue 4, Hope issue 1. I wanted to say Franklin and Bash, but it's Franklin and Ghost issues 2 and 3. Ben Mortara and the Thieves of the Golden Gate issue 3. And then Nicholas, boom.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. We have Berserker, Poetry of Madness, issue 1, not reading. We have MMPR issue 110, which you are reading and loving.
Awesome.
We have The Seasons Have Teeth, issue 4. The Neighbors. Oh, man, this was fucked up. Again, tremendous series. This is another one that could potentially make the top 10, be on my list for top 10 horror comics of 2023. We have The Expanse, Dragon Tooth, issue 4, Creed, Next Round, issue 2, and then, Nicholas, a book you've been dying to read. Tell the people what it is.
Before I do that, I do want to say with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 110, Melissa Flores has been building up to this whole big, crazy event around Mistress Vile, also known as Rita Repulsa. Oh my God, the end of this issue, it's like this shit's about to get fucking crazy. And she's been doing an awesome job on her run with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Of course, she knows the property very well. But yes, Alice Never After, issue 1. You've heard me talk about Alice Ever After on the show. Of course, we've had friend Dan Panosian on the show talk about the series. He is the writer and one of the artists on this series. The last time around, he was drawing the stuff in Wonderland. This time around, he's drawing the stuff that's happening in London. And then the Wonderland illustrator is Giorgio Spalletta with Cyril Glerum. And first of all, I love Dan's artwork. The series starts out, this is the second arc of this story, and it starts out with Dan's artwork in London. And I'm just like, God, his shit is just, it's just, I don't know. It's right in, it just scratches that itch for me. So he does an outstanding job, but then of course he's writing this whole thing, and I can see why he was like, this first arc, Alice Ever After, was fun. It was good. Obviously enjoyed writing it, but this is going to get even crazier because this is primarily set in Wonderland. Because if you've read Alice Ever After, I'm not going to spoil it, but just it sets up for that to be the case. And it's like things are a bit off in Wonderland, and there's like a few different directions this could go in, but this like gives the lay of the land, kind of what's going on in Wonderland. Some of the stuff with like what's happening in London as well. Great re-entry to this series, and I know you are gonna read Alice Ever After at some point, and I recommend you getting on it right now, so that way you can get it on Alice Never After.
Oh, you sound like you're from London.
Yeah. What was that accent?
That was Paul Rudd from Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Okay.
Oh, you sound like you're from London.
You were gonna say Saving Private Ryan, weren't you?
I was gonna.
Paul Rudd was great in that.
It was between that and Saving Silverman.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's more egregious, quite honestly. But anyways, let's get to the book that you have planned to talk about this week, Joe. It's been hasn't been that long since we done one of these, but what do you got planned for everybody?
Yeah, we've been humming through mainline issues here lately.
Good.
It's nice. I like
up.
that.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more than one trade a year if possible. But anyways, this is a book. So again, nice guy Doc, I gave you an option. I said, Nick, what would you like me to read? What book would you like to start reading? Because I had it down between a couple different books. And you said, could you please read Mosely? I've been dying to read it. So here we are, right? This is your wedding gift, by the way. So don't expect anything else from me, okay? All right. But Mosely from Boom Studios, written by Rob Gilroy, who also wrote Farmhand, which is a book that I'm hoping to finish up and talk about on the show soon. It's been excellent. But anyways, writer Rob Gilroy with art by Sam Lotfi with colors by Jean-Francois Belliot. And I couldn't find a letter. So enlighten me if you can, Nicholas, at some point. But
Sure.
I don't want to skip the letterer because we know how
no, everybody knows how anti-letterer you are. So
I am big anti-letterer. No, God, no. My guy, Stan's the guy. Big Eisner Award. Anyways, Mosely, Boom Studios, synopsis. In the hyper-technological world of the later 21st century, Mosely is a bitter old janitor on a mission from a higher power to unleash holy hell upon the too big to fail tech gods. So this is a wonderful, wonderful sci-fi story, and it's very fitting in this day and age, especially where we are now with AI. Because we've talked about on this show all the time. We talked about when we talked with Not All Robots when that came out with AWA Studios, but we've discussed our hatred, our absolute hatred for the robots. And how they talk. Letterer Andrew Thomas, thank you, Nicholas. And our hatred for the robots because we know they're going to take over, and we're all fucked. And but beyond that, I feel like the past 6 months, if not maybe just a little smidge longer, like shit, like Chat GPT, has really come to the forefront. Part of the shit that that the writers have to strike about is this AI shit going to take over our jobs, right? We've seen various, at least on Twitter, I've seen various comic creators, artists, and writers both say, like AI is coming for our jobs.
I mean, Tom
Literally
Taylor said it.
Yeah,
he's at the top of his game right now. He is one of the preeminent comic book writers right now, and he's even saying it.
Right. So it's like, wow, this shit's a little real now. It's more than just, dystopian future comic book movie kind of stuff. Like we're seeing it, we're living in it right now. And so this book was obviously well in the process. By the time a book comes out, it was like, oh, the first issue was just, put together like a month or so ago. Like it's probably 6 months to a year in the making, probably, right? So it's fitting that it's sort of coming out now and we're really starting to see all this shit kind of take off. And it's kind of frightening. But this is a great story where it's sort of taking a look at that, where, you sort of got two, you got two, I don't want to say factions, but you've got a majority of the people in this world that Mosely is living in, where AI is there to better society. Right. And that's how a lot of these sci-fi movies and comics and stories are premised, right? We use technology. It's been like that since the dawn of time. I mean, since fucking man discovered the wheel and man discovered fire. Like technology is there to make our lives better. Well, what happens when that shit becomes set in it and really tries to fucking take over? That's where we have the problem. But like we're dealing with a world where, advancing AI to make our lives better through neural upgrades or whatever it may be, we're being hoodwinked. And so you've got that group of people, and then you have Mosely. You have this dude who's like, no, that shit's not for me. And so he is your, for all intents and purposes, he is your main character. He is your main, protagonist. And the book starts off, the first issue starts off with a younger Mosely saying goodbye to his family because he's been recruited, to take part in this mission, so to speak, right? But you find out that he's just sort of, where he's being relocated to is what looks like any town, USA, right? White picket fence, nice house. He pulls up. You think he's the only one living there, but no, for a year, he has to live, interact with, and teach a robot, an AI program that's there to study him, learn from him, learn about, humans, the human condition, all of that stuff. And then what's bananas is that this book then fast forwards, same issue, story fast forwards 30 years in the future. And as the synopsis said, he is a bitter old janitor. And in the school that he's a janitor in, there's technology out the ass. There's robots up and down the hallways. There's, holograms teaching the kids on data pads, all this stuff. And something happened. Something happened to that time frame, but you don't know what. And that's what's beautiful about this story, is that the way everything sort of unfolds. And you learn that in that 30-year gap, he is estranged from his wife. He is estranged from his daughter. And one of the reasons why you find out that he's estranged from his daughter is that his daughter has sort of become the figurehead, one of the main people put in charge to oversee the technology that has sort of taken over the society in which they're living in. And he can't get over that. We don't know what happened to him. And you find out as you're reading the story, but in this first issue, and that's what's so gripping about it. It's like, what the fuck happened to take someone who was so eager to do this? To he wanted to be there at the forefront to make the world a better place, and now he's the antithesis of that. We gotta stop this shit. This shit is ruining everything. We're being oppressed. This is not freedom. You're having the wool pulled over your eyes, like that typical sort of sci-fi story there. And so, that's one of the fascinating things, is that you've got this great, dynamic between the father and the daughter, and eventually the mother, right? Because it seems, that him and his wife were very much in love, very much loved each other, but you don't see her until much later on in the role that she plays. And so, you know, what really is going on, you still don't really know, like, okay, are there bad guys yet? You just know that there's AI and there's technology, but as far as you the reader know, everything it seems, like we are on a path to a better society. And then you get to the end of the issue. And I can never stress this enough. A great comic book, I know a book is a TLDR worthy book by the end of the first issue. It's very rare where I'm like, well, I got to give another issue or two before I decide. I knew that with Radiant Black. I knew that here with Mosely. The way that it ends, it's powerful. It's something happens. And so it ends, with Mosely saying, I've had enough. And he decides to do something about it. And then his life, his role, the arc of this story changes dramatically. And I don't want to say what exactly happens, because you want to read this book. You want to read that and get to the end of that first issue and see that moment for yourself. Not just read it, but you want to see it, because Lotfie's art is absolutely incredible in this series. And in that particular moment, it is a perfect cinematic moment that you get. It's almost, this book has a very cinematic feel to it, period, when you're reading it, but also when you're looking at it. So it's a story of redemption. It's a story of salvation, freedom, and family, right? And there's a lot of badass fight scenes, a lot of battles. There's essentially it's good versus evil. It's humans versus the robots. And I'm all for any book that's going to show me the potential downfall and destruction, of the robots.
I love the idea of a janitor taking them down too.
Oh, and he's so badass too. He's just this motherfucker ain't gonna back down.
You called dibs on this, and then I listened to an interview where someone was talking about it, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like I texted you, and I'm like, "Did you call dibs on this?" And you're like, "Yep, I did." Like,
sure did.
Yeah, that's why I need you to talk about now, because this is definitely up my alley.
Yeah. So real quick, the characters, as I mentioned, Marvin Mosely, he is your main protagonist. He is flawed, but he is very principled. And that the father-daughter dynamic throughout this book is because you can see both points of view here, but it's really good. It's really excellent. And as his arc unfolds throughout the story, it's something else. You have Gloria, his wife, his estranged wife. She's really not a big impact early on, but then she plays a bigger role later down the road. But the Ruby, his daughter, who is sort of in that gray area there, right? Because her and her father couldn't be any on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but how their story comes together and how it ends, and the battles that they go through against each other, with each other, was really well done. And so she, like I said, she works with the robots. She thinks that she is doing working for the greater good. and when she sees the light, how she sees the light, and how it all unfolds. Again, this is 5 issues. It's really like just it's solid storytelling start to finish. You can't it doesn't get much better. But then you have the AI, or as they're known as the techno celestials, right? Because we talked about sort of in the synopsis about taking on these gods. Well, the people don't know it, but they've been having the strings pulled all along by these AI, gods, so to speak. And they're, obviously, as its story unfolds, becomes the main antagonist. And they claim that they're studying mankind, to make it a better place. They use technology. They use these sort of neural upgrades for people to sort of like this. You give them drugs and they're happy, and you move on. It's the same sort of thing here. We got a little bit of this with Thumbs, right? With Sean Lewis when he tackled that there. And just the battle, the way it all unfolds, when the truth, when Ruby learns the truth, when Marvin learns the truth, and the shit that Marvin's got to go through to get there, and everything. It's just, again, this is a cinematic sci-fi kick-ass story that if you're into that stuff, this is no doubt a must read. But I think any comic book fan would enjoy this.
This sounds outstanding, and it's interesting because I know you've said cinematic multiple times. This definitely 5-issue series very much sounds like it should be a movie, but at the same time, the way this world is set up, it also sounds like something that could be a show if they wanted to do it.
Oh, no doubt, because you could slow play like those early years, him studying, that year, like the first season could be like his first year with the robot, and then it ends, on why things go bad, and then this could easily be like a 2 to 3 season show, or just a kick-ass 2-hour movie.
Yeah, and I think movie sounds like the better route anyways. My other question that I had for this too is, did this, obviously we have the father-daughter dynamic at play in all this, like did it like scratch that itch for you too?
Well, so
without spoiling, of course.
Yeah, it's different, right? So like I would say it was it how do I want to put this? I would say that it was a really good dynamic between the two. I really can't say much because I don't want to spoil anything. Was it like as emotional heavy as, say, what I'm going to get from a Lemire book, or maybe even a Sean Lewis book? Probably not, but that's not to mean that there's not some feels here. There's not some moments where you can either sympathize, or makes you scratch your head completely, or can relate to. It's all there. But it was really well done.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I cannot wait to, like, there's another one where it's like, you didn't need to say much to sell me on this. The concept sounds outstanding, and the art, like looking at some of the cover art too.
Wait till you see the panel at the end there when shit goes down.
Man, I can't
Tremendous.
wait to check this one out. But it's now the time for me to talk. And I have a book. I have a book that I've talked about Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips on here more than any other creative pair, I would say, for sure, because there's not many creative pairs like these two that constantly work together. But their books, I think I've talked about them the most. It's them or Mark. We keep saying Millar, but I think it's actually Mark Miller. I don't know. Kevin Millar screwed us up. Anyways, yeah. Night Fever is the book that I'm talking about this week from Image Comics. Ed Brubaker's the writer. Sean Phillips did the art and the letters, and then the colors are by Sean Phillips' son, Jacob Phillips, who, again, we talked about Newburn earlier. He is the artist over there. Night Fever is a step, this is like their break from the Reckless series, which obviously they've been doing a lot over there, and that's an awesome series. Must read stuff. I talked about that on the show a while back. I can't remember what issue, but go check that out if you haven't already. This is graphic novel, as those others are, basically 100 pages long. Like, it's like 128 in my review copy, but there's like extra like stuff at the beginning and credits pages and all that stuff. So it's basically 100 pages of story, if my math was correct. And it's something that like there could be more in this world. I don't like there's a few ways in which they could do it, but to me it makes more sense if they don't go and do anything else with Night Fever again. But that said, like if they they did, I would absolutely be reading this. So it's like I'm not sure where that line, what you decide there. But the synopsis for this: who are you really? Are you the things you do, or are you the person inside your mind? In Europe on a business trip, Jonathan Webb can't sleep. Instead, he finds himself wandering the night in a strange foreign city with his new friend, the mysterious and violent Rainer, as his guide. Rainer shows Jonathan the hidden world of the night, a world without rules or limits. But when the fun turns dangerous, Jonathan may find himself trapped in the dark. The question is, what will he do to get home? So, mentioned this is, yeah, right? Awesome. This is set in Europe. 1978 is where this begins, and it's all like over a course of like a few weeks, I believe, maybe even less than a few weeks. As we mentioned, the main character is Jonathan Webb. Rainer is another one who we don't meet right away, but we do meet. I think this is like I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 chapters, but he, I believe, is in the second chapter. And like Jonathan meets him when like Jonathan's kind of taking part in his own little bit of debauchery, and then this is where like Rainer kind of ropes him into even more. Then there's another character who's kind of reoccurring, but it's really Jonathan Webb and Rainer are the main characters. But Den Pickett, who we hear about very early, this character is an author whose book had a real impact on Jonathan. And Jonathan doesn't just, read books. He works in publishing. And I don't know if the official title is ever mentioned, but like we see him reading a manuscript early on. So he's like buying books. He works for a company. He talks to, partners out in Europe. That's why he's there to talk to them about different books that he's been looking at. That's what he's supposed to be doing at least. But he's kind of getting after it because he's just going through this weird midlife crisis. And that's what's so interesting about this one, because this guy wanted to be a writer, but now he started off at this company, this publishing company, as an intern. And then it kind of just, he did well at it and he's kept doing it. And someone says to him, like, and again, this is like in the first chapters, we're kind of getting to know Jonathan. It's like, you've made it, man. You have a wife, you have kids that are like little league age. And then like you have a home in the suburbs. Like, you're working in writing, as much as you're not a writer, like he's still there. And guess what, Joe? He's still like, he's going through it. He's like having these doubts. He's upset about not telling his own story. Then like Den Pickett's story kind of set him off down that path just because of like how familiar the story felt. But this whole, like this first chapter, and it's interesting with the graphic novel where, we talk about first issues, you got to like put your hooks into people, and usually the last couple pages is going to do that. With a graphic novel, it's like you're in it for the long haul. So we don't get those hooks in the first chapter in Night Fever, but what happens is you lay out this character so much, like you know this person, like either you can relate to him or someone who this character Jonathan reminds you of. And it's like, wow, okay. And like the way it ends, instead of it being like oh shit, oh fuck, it's like, damn, man, like this guy's he's in a bad way right now. Like he's just he does not know what to do. And then you get to the second chapter, and then all fucking hell breaks loose. That's when it starts getting crazy. All hell breaks loose, like in chapter 3, chapter 4, and on and on. And it just gets crazier and crazier. But yeah, it's wild. I was fascinated too, because again, I've talked before about how narration isn't always for me personally. Like I for some reason I don't always like in comic book form. It's not always for me. Sometimes it can bog things down. It can just the pacing, it can get kind of thrown off because if the dialogue's moving at a quick pace, but then there's a lot of narration. It's like, okay, like let the art tell more of the story. Like obviously we can't. I want dialogue and whatnot in there, but when narration is done right, it's so fucking good. Like I love it. I've absolutely zero issue with when it's done right. I just think it's not always easy to do right, or maybe we've just seen too many people who don't do it right when they shouldn't be doing it. But like Brubaker absolutely knows how to fucking do it, and with this story even more so than like with Reckless, where there's a lot going on with the characters that narrate, because we've dealt with 2 narrators in those stories. In this one, it's like you really get like this. Like if I don't know if it was like a personal thing for Brubaker. Like I'm sure like anything you write, there is some level of like personableness to it, unless you're maybe writing Marvel or DC. But like it feels like he's drawing on something that either he or Sean Phillips or the both of them have experienced mentally in some capacity in their life, because they've done really well. They've made it. I mean, not many people can do what they do in comics, and obviously the success rate is insane. So it like the way it felt personal was like that. It was remarkable. So like I love what they do with this character. We talk about character work all the time, and they do a good job of it. But this stuff with Jonathan Webb is very surprising and very impressive.
That sounds tremendous. Yeah, I've been dying to read this book ever since it was announced, and of course you did me dirty. That's okay. I give you a book, I throw you bones, you just chew them up and spit in my face. But
okay.
No, but seriously though, like Brubaker and Phillips, that's just a team. They've got carte blanche, right? They've got carte blanche, and the Reckless series is absolutely tremendous, and this sounds absolutely fantastic. And when you got those two together like that, you know you're going to get a fucking awesome story.
Yeah, it's an awesome story, and like as I was like taking the notes down and going back through it, because I read it right when it came out, or maybe even before, because we did have review copies. But when I was getting into it, as I was getting ready for the show, it's like, God, like I love the story and everything that went on with the character, but I forgot how much like everything's so like heavy on Jonathan Webb in that first issue. And don't get me wrong, again, he's narrating the whole time. It's all about his experience and everything and how he's seeing stuff and processing things. But it's just the way that the tone is set in the first issue. It's like, fuck, man, this shit can get really dark and really weird, and it does.
Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. I can't wait to read this. I might actually go to bed tonight reading this, to be honest with you.
You can definitely do that. You will be okay, Joe, to do that. This is not Ribbon Queen. I would say don't do that, but obviously you got to wait a little bit. But anyways, that does it for this week's episode. Again, or subscribe to our audio channels, because you never know what's going to be popping up from week to week. Hell, we don't know half the time what's going to be popping up. So make sure you're subscribed there, so that way you get all the audio delivered right to your listening device. Leave a 5-star rating review. I meant to say that before. If you listen on Apple, wherever else you listen, make sure you leave the highest rating review possible. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of Backcracker. But
we got to make some money out of this. This idea is just too good.
But until next week, Joe, stay sexy.
You know it.